Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
There's other copies on the table here.
Oh yeah.
Rainam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesh vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat yutamashloke bhaktir bhavati naisti king. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, entitled Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions. We're on text 27. It's September 6th, 2020. We're on text 27 of Canto 2, Chapter 7. And Bhakti Keith wrote the verse on the board here. So, okay. Tokena Jiva Haranam Yad Uluki Kayas Trai Masikasya Cha Pada Sakato Pavrita Yad Ringatantara Gatena Divi Sprishor Ba Unmulanam Tvitaratar Junayor Na Bhavyam Tokena Jiva Haranam Yadolukikayas Traimasikasya Chapada Shakato Pavrita Yadringatantara Gatena Divi Sprishurva Unmulanam Tvitaratar Junayor Nabhavyam Tokena Jiva Haranam Yadulukikayas Tokena Jiva Haranam Yadulukikayas Traimasikasya Chapada Shakato Pavrita Traimasikasya Chapada Shakato Pavrita Yadringatanta Vakatena Divi Sprishurva Unmulanam Tvitaratar Junayor Nabhavyam Tokena Jiva Haranam Yadulukikayas Traimasikasya Chapada Shakato Pavrita Yadringatanta Katena Divi Sprishurva Unmulanam Tvitaratar Junayor Nabhavyam Would anyone else like to recite the verse?
Tokena
Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas. Chaimasikasya chapada shakato pavritam. Yadringatantarakatena divi sprishurva. Unmulanam tvi taratar junayor nabhavyam.
Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas.
Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas.
Traimasikasya chapada sakato pavitra.
Traimasikasya chapada shakato pavritam.
Yadringatantaragatina divispishorva.
Yadringatantarakatena divi sprishurva.
Unmulanam vetarata junayor nabhavyam.
Unmulanam tvitartar junayor nabhavyam. Would anyone online like to recite?
Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas.
Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas.
Traimasikasya chapada shakato pavritta.
Traimasikasya chapado sakata pavita.
Yadringatantaragatina divisprishodva.
Yadringatantaragatina divishvishova.
Unmulanam tvitaratar junayor nabhavyam.
Unmulanam vitaratar junayo nabhavyam. Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas.
Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas.
Traimasikasya chapada shakato pavitaha.
Traimasikasya chapada shakato pavitra.
Yadringatam taragatena divishvrisova.
Yadringatam taragatena divisprishodva.
Unmulanam vaditarata jayuya nabhavyam.
Unmulanam tvitaratar junayor nabhavyam.
Would anyone else like to chant the verse?
Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas.
Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas.
Traimasikasya chapada shakato pavita.
Traimasikasya chapada shakato pavrita.
Yadringatantaragatina divishvishorva.
Yadringatantarakatena divisprishodvam.
Unmulanam vitaratar junayor nabhavyam.
Unmulanam tvitaratar junayor nabhavyam. Tokena, by a child. Jiva haranam, killing a living being. Yat, one which. Uluki kaya, assumed the giant body of a demon. Trimasikasya, of one who was only 3 months old. Cha, also. Pada, by the leg. Sakata apavrita, turned over the cart. Yat, one who. Ringata, while crawling. Antaragatena,
Antaragatena,
being overtaken,
being overtaken,
Divi,
Divi,
high in the sky,
high in the sky,
Sprisho,
Srisho,
touching,
touching,
Va,
Va,
either,
either,
Unmulanam,
Unmulanam,
uprooting,
uprooting,
to,
to,
but, Itarata,
Itarata,
anyone else than
anyone else than
Arjunayo
Arjuna,
of the two Arjuna
of
trees,
the two Arjuna trees,
na bhavyam,
Nabhavyam,
was not possible.
was not possible.
Translation. There is no doubt about Lord Krishna being the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how was it possible for him to kill a giant demon like Putana when he was just on the lap of his mother, to overturn a cart with his leg when he was only 3 months old, to uproot a pair of Arjuna trees so high that they touched the sky when he was only crawling? All these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Lord himself. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One cannot manufacture a God by one's mental speculation or by numerical votes, as has become a practice for the less intelligent class of men. God is God eternally, and an ordinary living entity is eternally a part and parcel of God. God is one without a second, and the ordinary living entities are many without number. All such living entities are maintained by God himself, and that is the verdict of the Vedic literatures. When Krishna was on the lap of his mother, the demon Putana appeared before his mother and prayed to nurture the child in her lap. Mother Yashoda agreed, and the child was transferred onto the lap of Putana, who was in the garb of a respectable lady. Putana wanted to kill the child by smearing poison on the nipple of her breast. But when everything was complete, the Lord sucked her breast along with her very air of life, and the demon's gigantic body, said to be as long as 6 miles, fell down. But Lord Krishna did not need to expand himself to the length of the she-demon Putana, although he was quite competent to extend himself more than 6 miles long. In his Vaman incarnation, he posed himself as a dwarf Brahmin, but when he took possession of his land, promised by Bali Maharaj, he expanded his footstep to the top of the universe, extending over thousands and millions of miles. So it was not very difficult for Krishna to perform a miracle by extending his bodily feature. But he had no desire to do it because of his deep filial love for his mother Yashoda. If Yashoda had seen Krishna in her lap, extending 6 miles to cope with the she-demon Putana, then the natural filial love of Yashoda would have been hurt, because in that way, Yashoda would have come to know that her so-called son, Krishna, was God himself. And with the knowledge of the godhood of Krishna, Yashoda Mai would have lost the temper of her love for Krishna as a natural mother. But as far as Lord Krishna is concerned, he is God always, either as a child on the lap of his mother or as the cover of the universe, Vamanadev. He does not require to become God by undergoing severe penances, although some men think of becoming God in that way. By undergoing severe austerities and penances, one cannot become one or equal with God, but one can attain most of the godly qualities. A living being can attain godly qualities to a large extent, but he cannot become God. Whereas Krishna, without undergoing any type of penance, is God always, either in the lap of his mother or growing up, or at any stage of growth. So at the age of only 3 months, he killed the Shakatasura, who had remained hidden behind a cart in the house of Yashoda Mai. And when he was crawling and was disturbing his mother from doing household affairs, the mother tied him with a grinding pestle, but the naughty child dragged the pestle up to a pair of very high Arjuna trees in the yard of Yashoda Mai. And when the pestle was stuck between the pair of trees, they fell down with a horrible sound. When Yashoda Mai came to see the happenings, she thought that her child had been saved from the falling trees by the mercy of the Lord, without knowing that the Lord himself, crawling in her yard, had wreaked the havoc. So That is the way of reciprocation of love affairs between the Lord and his devotees. Yashoda Mai wanted to have the Lord as her child, and the Lord played exactly like a child in her lap, but at the same time played the part of the Almighty Lord whenever it was so required. The beauty of such pastimes was that the Lord fulfilled everyone's desire. In the case of felling the gigantic Arjuna trees, the Lord's mission was to deliver the two sons of Kuvera, who were condemned to become trees by the curse of Narada, as well as to play like a crawling child in the yard of Yashoda, who took transcendental pleasure in seeing such activities of the Lord in the very yard of her home. The Lord in any condition is Lord of the universe, and he can act as such in any form, gigantic or small, as he likes. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Kadhamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpata Yubhyashcha Kripa Sindubhye Vacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Canto 2, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 7, Text 27. Tokena Jiva Haranam Yadolokikayas Traimasikasya Chapada Shakato Pavrita Yadringatan Taragatena Divis Pishurva Unmulanam Sri Taratarjunayor Nabhavyam. There is no doubt about Lord Krishna's being the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how was it possible for him to kill a giant demon like Putana when he was just on the lap of his mother, to overturn a cart with his leg when he was only 3 months old, to uproot a pair of Arjuna trees so high that they touched the sky when he was only crawling? All these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Lord himself. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So here we have Lord Brahma describing to his disciple and son Narada Muni, and this whole chapter is about describing different incarnations. And here he's, in a sense, he's not describing an incarnation. Ete Chamta Kala Pumsa Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. He's describing about the source of all incarnations, Krishna, and he's devoting like about 10 verses to Krishna himself. And here in this verse we have some of Krishna's childhood pastimes. And in the purport, well, a place where Prabhupada's focusing. A place where Prabhupada's focusing is like, that the main thing for Krishna is exchange of affection. That's the focus here. That's the main thing for Krishna, exchange of affection. And so, well, in the prasad room, in the dining room, we have the picture of the pastime of Mother Yashoda looking into Krishna's mouth, and it's similar to what this Prabhupada describes here. Then because Balaram and some other of his so-called friends, they accused him of eating dirt. So Krishna said, they're lying, they're lying. So Mother Yashoda said, well, I'm not so sure who's lying here. So Mother Yashoda said, okay, well, open your mouth. Let's just do a direct check. Because she was concerned, that he eats dirt, he'll get sick, like that. And so this is very exalted. So because our position is to serve God, to serve Krishna. But so some devotees like Mother Yashoda, Vasudev, Devaki, Mother Yashoda, Rohini, Nanda Maharaj, that they get to be in because their affection is so deep, they get to be in a superior position. Because the idea, because the parents serve the child. The parents serve the child, right? And so Krishna appreciates the exchange of affection. But then when Mother Yashoda looked in his mouth and she saw all the planetary systems and the entire cosmos and entire creation, and she saw everything, it was one of these infinite regresses, right? And she saw herself. She saw herself in Krishna's mouth. She saw herself looking into Krishna's mouth, seeing all the universes, and then in those universes, she saw Mother Yashoda looking into Krishna's mouth, and she was like, "Well, this is really far out. Oh, this isn't my little Krishna. Actually, yeah, and actually, I'm not the queen of Vrindavan and the wife, and this is I'm an illusion. This is actually the supreme. This is the creator of all energies." And then that's a lot less attractive for Krishna. That's a lot less of attractive. So then he put her into Yoga Maya again. She was coming out of spiritual Maya. She was coming out of Yoga Maya, and then he put her into Yoga Maya again, and she just so don't ever eat dirt. And she just forgot all about the whole source of all the creation and the cosmos. And then Krishna was like, okay, good. The universe is in order again. Mother Yashoda is chastising me. We're good. Yes. So we can, certainly we can understand something about God by looking at ourselves, because we can see that we want to exchange affection, right? So then that Janmadyasya Yataha, that's where the Bhagavatam starts. That's where Vedanta Sutra starts. What exists in the effect must exist in the source. So we can see in ourselves, we want in a very personal, loving, intimate way to exchange affection in different varieties. And so in one sense, it's an esoteric topic about these rasas with Krishna. At the same time, the different, there's 5 primary rasas, 7 secondary rasas. In one sense, it's very esoteric. In another sense, like of Prabhupada's, call it 54 major books, like translations of the Vedas, purports. The first one is Bhagavad Gita, and pretty much on the first page, he discusses these rasas right in the beginning of the introduction, right after his Mangalacharana mantras. He describes, there's service in a passive state, there's service as a parent, service as a conjugal lover, service as a friend, service as a servant. So this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. So we have that propensity to enjoy and relish relationship. So therefore, must exist in my source. Must exist in my source. And Prabhupada kind of indicates some Vedic verses here. Ekubhanam yovi dadati kaman, that from the one expands many. Ekubahusham nichu nichnam chaitanas chaitananam, that Krishna, God, is the singular eternal and conscious entity, and we're also eternal conscious entities. And yes, God is one without a second, and the ordinary living entities are many with number. And again, so by studying ourselves, we can understand something about our source, Krishna. Just like if we study a drop of the ocean. If we study the drop of the ocean, we pretty much we can understand the chemical composition of the ocean, right? But at the same time, the drop is not the ocean. It is, but it isn't, right? Like the drop doesn't contain tidal waves and things like that. From the ray of the sun, we can understand about the sun, but there's quite a difference in light. So the ray is light and it's illuminating, just like the sun is light and it's illuminating. And the ray it emanates heat, right? But the quantity, the temperature, the quantity of heat can't compare to the sun. So similarly, we are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And our Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasabhabricha. So there's one Ishvara master, and everyone else is servant. Even Lord Balaram is a servant of Krishna. And so that's kind of the key to develop, to give up the desire to be God and cultivate the desire to serve God. That's kind of the key. Right? So forgetful life is like in each in our different ways, each living entity, even the blade of grass is trying to be God in its way, to try to get some enjoyment separate from Krishna, and to understand, no, Jiva Srupai Krishna Nichadas Krishna Ratatasta Shakti Beta Prakash. That my position, my happiness, my bliss is in putting Krishna to the center. And so, there's often discussion and angst around like why do bad things happen to good people? And I've had my share of tormenting doubts, but that was never one of them. That was never one of them for me. So many terrible things happen to innocent people like that. And so that means there's no God. That means there's no God. So I mean, for me, it makes sense that like we all have our propensity for psychological analysis and things like that. So for me, it makes sense that God's psychology dwarfs ours, right? It's kind of like, I guess the conception is, well, basically, I don't understand why everything's happening, and I want things to happen to me and others in a particular way. That would be right, that would be good, that would be beautiful, that would be true. I have my conception of goodness and beauty and truth. And it doesn't happen that way. Therefore, there's no God. Because if there was a God, he would manage things exactly like I would manage things. And that's not happening, therefore there's no God. So this never plagued me, kind of like that. Like it's so just like each of us, right? We relate to different individuals in different ways, right? And so it's here, God is all compassionate. We might sometimes be compassionate, but even on our good days where we're not envious or like that, but we relate to different people in different ways to enhance our intimacy with them. So that's what Krishna is doing, right? So here, it's described to enhance his intimacy with Mother Yashoda. He's behaving in a certain way. And so to enhance his, so he would, I know there's maybe about 20 spirit souls and human bodies here in this gathering, between online and in person. And so Krishna's acting, and he's always been acting, including before we heard of Krishna or Prabhupada. Krishna's acting to bring us towards an affectionate relationship with him. And he's smarter than us. Of course, he has diverse ways to do it according to individuals. And sometimes it might look like giving some encouragement. Sometimes it might look like banging us on the head with his flute. Yes, sometimes we need to be banged on the head with the flute. Sometimes it might look like, enjoy some material energy. And sometimes it might look like suffering the material energy as like, wake up. This is like a fish out of water. You won't be happy. You will be in hell. Not necessarily hell, you'll burn in hell. But just like, that when we're in forgetfulness of our position as servants of Krishna, we experience hell. And so Krishna relates to it. Like, God acts in mysterious ways. True, I mean, that's the general thing. But he's acting in a very personal way with each of us, and with the spirit, soul, and the body of the squirrel or the tree, with all of the innumerable living entities in material and spiritual creation, to bring us towards a sweet, affectionate relationship with him. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And to move us to come towards some awakening, that rather than me, the main thing in the universe is my personal God project. Okay, the main thing in the universe is Krishna. Let's put Krishna in the center. So it's about, from wherever we're at, Krishna's meeting us in his way, which is more clever than what we could think of. And the foundation of all the rasas, the Madhurya Ras, the Vatsalya Ras, Sakya Ras, Dasya Ras, Shanta Ras, Chivalry Ras, Humor Ras, the foundation, it's all founded on service. Okay, so the idea of, we don't want to, so it's fine and good and recommended to speak about affectionate relationships with Krishna. That's what we're doing. Prabhupada instituted morning program, read Bhagavatam. And sometimes we get very sweet verses like this, right? So we're not supposed to avoid it. Right there in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, talks about those affectionate exchanges with Krishna. That's the goal. That's the goal of the Vedas. Vedanta Krit Veda Vedeva Chaham, to bring everyone to relation with Krishna. Relation with Krishna, personal relation. So to realize who we are as not the body, as spirit soul. What's the natural activity of spirit soul? That's devotional service. We engage in bhakti. The result, prayojana, love, the bliss of the soul. So this is compassion from Krishna and his pure representatives to bring us to our actual bliss, to wake up from a dream. The dream might sometimes be, this is a heavenly dream, or this is a nightmare. Whatever, it's just a dream. There's not a chance for substantial bliss there. And so here, as spirit souls in the human form, and we get to practice. We get to practice service. We use this term, a spiritual master. What's that mean? Kibavipakivinasti Sudra Kene Naya Ye Krishna Tattva Veda Sayi Guraya. Ye Krishna Tattva. Vedanti Tattva Vidas Tattva Myaj Ganam Advayam. Rameti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdi Desh Tattva. Probably the English word truth comes from the Sanskrit Tattva. Right? So Krishna, a true spiritual master, it's not about anything external, what family they were born on, whether they have a beard, or whether they're from this part of the world or that part of the world, or what's the age. To what extent are they realized expert in Krishna Tattva, in the science of Krishna, the science of how to perform devotional service? Yes, cognitively and and experientially. So Srila Prabhupada, he's engaged in that affectionate relationship with Krishna. That's clear if anyone's studying Prabhupada's teachings in life. And yeah, that's the thing. Like people can like, oh look, Prabhupada wrote this. I don't agree with that, and that's encouraged. That's encouraged to like what's our authentic response with Prabhupada? I don't agree with that. I don't like this and that, and that's encouraged to apply our intellect. What's our questions? What's our doubts? What's our point of view? Healthy discussion. But but everyone will accept Prabhupada is just like he's just 100% devotee of Krishna. Now someone can say, well, okay, well, that's not my goal to be a devotee of Krishna. Or my view of the Vedas is the Krishna is just a demigod, or Krishna didn't even exist. We can have different views, but whatever our views, you can't read a few sentences from Prabhupada without getting like, wow, he's just given everything to Krishna. And we can have our opinions about what we think of that. But that's what he's doing, and no one argues that. So okay, and then we have the opportunity to, if we choose to make that our goal. Yes, I want to become a devotee of Krishna. So then we have a perfect 100% example of that in Srila Prabhupada. And then it's all about practicing how to serve. And then as far as the particular affectionate relationship, in whether it's in the line of Mother Yashoda or the Manjari gopis or Subal and the cowherd boys or like that, okay, that's that kind of gets revealed. We're encouraged to not try to like force that in some artificial contrived way. But the idea is we hear, and then we get to develop an attraction. Yes, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to at least go in that direction. And so the process is hearing about these pastimes. We hear about these pastimes, whether it's the pastime of Krishna Arjuna, having a discussion on the battlefield, whether it's the pastime of the Shakatasura demon. I wouldn't be surprised if the English word cart comes from Shakatasura. So yes, so hearing these pastimes, they're infinitely sweet and attractive, and then gradually we lose our attraction for other pastimes that are just dry and mundane and empty for the soul. They might be titillating for the material senses. And then for the most part, the sense that's most recommended to be engaged is the sense of the ears, the sense of hearing. And Prabhupada often emphasizes seeing is overrated. Right? Seeing is overrated because can you show me God? Can you see me? So actually the answer is yes, we can show you God. How willing am I to go through the process to see God? Atashri Krishna Namadi Nababed Graham Indriya Sevan Moki Hi Jividal Svayam Eva Spirat Yada. That with material senses, we won't have a direct experience of transcendence. And we practice this process, then more and more, when we envision these pastimes, we see God. And more, when we taste water, we taste God. And when we see the deity, and Prabhasmi Sasi Surya, when we see the light of the sun and the moon, we're seeing Krishna. And that requires a cultivation of consciousness that comes, to get that experience, to open the jar of honey, then that's the key to open the jar of honey. And actually, because we can talk about, I think honey tastes like this, I think it tastes like that. We can go on for millions of years. Pretty useless. So opening the jar of honey, that's equivalent to engaging without envy in the devotional mentality And then our spiritual senses get revealed more and more. Our spiritual eyes, our spirituality. Dam tu te guyatamam, pavaksham yana suyave, yanam viganam, sahitam yajgatva mokshate, mokshase subhat. Krishna says to Arjuna, because you're never envious of me, anasuyave, therefore I'm explaining to you this transcendental knowledge, realizing which you'll be relieved from the miseries of material existence. So kind of at a start, like it requires I want to be relieved from the miseries of material existence. Maybe I don't know about loving Krishna or serving everyone, but I want to be relieved. That's a good start. Sanatana Goswami approached Lord Chaitanya, Kami, Kanimaya Jari Tapachaya. He said, people think I'm great and have it together. He was practically the prime minister. He was wealthy. He was learned, knew 6 languages, very influential. He said, but I know that I don't even know who I am. And I know that I'm suffering and I don't want to be. And just like Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, Shishastaham Sadimam Tvam Prapanam. Now, in this condition of confusion, I'm clear enough to surrender into you. Please guide me. Please instruct me. So this devotion, Bhakti Mama Abhijanati Yavanyas Chasmi Tatvata Tatumam Tatvato Gyatva Visite Tadanantaram. Krishna says, only by bhakti are these pastimes revealed. Only by bhakti can I be known as I am. Like that. Let's see. Well, I think I'll read the verse again, and then I'll be glad to hear anyone's realizations or questions. Tokena jiva harinam yadulukikayas trimasika chichapata shakato pavrita yadringa tantara katena divis prishurva unmulanam tvitartar junayor nabhavyam. There is no doubt about Lord Krishna's being the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how was it possible for him to kill a giant demon like Putana when he was just on the lap of his mother, to overturn a cart with his leg when he was only 3 months old, to uproot a pair of Arjuna trees so high that they touched the sky when he was only crawling? All of these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Lord himself. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your presence and attention. I welcome if anyone would like to share any comments or ask any questions. Danielle.
So I have one comment and one question.
Yeah.
So my comment is when I was hearing you talk about the significance of being able to taste the honey.
Yeah.
So honey kind of has a homogenized taste in our mind because of the commercialization of it. But in actuality, honey is quite distinct to each hive. It can be very different in color and consistency and flavor.
Yes.
So I thought that was very, it was present for me as we're talking about tasting the honey, because I think each relationship is going to taste distinct.
Yes. Thanks for enriching that analogy.
Yeah. So my question is, in the Sikh perspective, as I understand it, do they see every relationship as a reflection of their relationship with God, with the Creator, and that we're here learning about how to relate to our eternal relationships?
Yes.
Throughout our mundane relationships.
Yeah.
And so relationships with family members and with spouses and children, they are very significant.
Yes.
Because they're a direct reflection of your relationship with God. So am I hearing that is also a Bhakti Yoga philosophy in these different rasas? Is it such a significant perspective that the way that we interact with each other can tell us information about how we're interacting with God, or where we're blocked, or where we're developing properly?
Thanks for your comment and question. I like the thing about honey. I'll probably use that. Maybe I'll give you credit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I know. We're familiar with this, the pulling the weeds process, and like in some of our courses, we give it out, coach training, foundational seminar, and pulling the weeds. And the original version of that, which I think I wrote maybe in 1999, the year 2000, had a few extra paragraphs that aren't there now. Because in those days, practically everyone who came to the programs, they identified as a devotee or an aspiring devotee. So we had some paragraphs about kind of the ultimate person with whom we have weeds, our relationship with God, with Krishna, and we gave some examples from the Shastra. And so we went there. Then when we presented a more secular version, we kind of edited some things. So I think that relates to what you're saying. And I've heard, I know a little bit about the Sikh, the founder of the Sikhs, Guru Nanak, he had association with Lord Chaitanya, like that. And so, yeah, that we want to be careful about these comparisons. At the same time, they're there, just like we said here. Just like that you have this relishable exchange with your daughter, right?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. She's your guru in many ways.
Yes, she is.
Yes, she is. And so you have this relishable exchange. So that's like the drop. And then that capacity for exchange of affection with mother-child affection, that's there infinitely in Krishna. Okay? We have propensity for romantic exchange. We have propensity for master-servant exchange. We have propensity for buddy-buddy friendship. So all these propensities, yes, that's there. And yeah, for sure, if I look at who am I envious of? So I don't want to do like a spiritual bypass and well, ultimately it's all God, because ultimately it's all about God. I mean, that's true, but that can be a spiritual bypass. But in looking at what's my weed, what's my resentment that I'm holding, what's my grungy racket with this person, and in a grounded way, look at myself, communicate like that, and simultaneously be in the question. How does this reflect on my relationship with the Supreme Person? How does it reflect on rackets I'm playing with God, with Krishna, like that? So that's a very, very helpful for our spiritual practice. And now we want to be cautious in the sense of, so that, because pretty much as long as we're conditioned by modes, material nature, material desires, and inclination to get adoration, and I need to be special, and greed, and lust, and stuff like that, then kind of like, let's call it that, the eternal taste of our honey relationship with Krishna, that's really only revealed when we're past that stage of mundane material desire. So we want to be careful that, in this life, I'm attracted to parental, so that must mean that in the Vaikuntha Goloka world, I am this and that. That doesn't necessarily correlate.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Dr. George.
There were two, I just have a comment. There were two lines from this purport that really I'm going to take with me kind of for the rest of the day and the week. And one was, so that is the way of reciprocation of love affairs between the Lord and his devotees. And the other one is, the beauty of such pastimes was that the Lord fulfilled everyone's desire. And so what came up for me was reflecting on how much the Lord kind of fulfills my desires. Sometimes it seems like even like things happening on a global level, like the coronavirus ripple effect.
Yes.
Like the ripple effect of the coronavirus has had, I can see how so many, wishes or desires that I've had have resulted,
Yes.
in an unexpected way from that. And when I speak with, like so many doctors at Shands who work 80-hour weeks, they'll say to me, you know what, like this is, whatever, but I'm so grateful to have spent time with my children that I would have never, relying on my own psychology and choosing to have this situation created in my life would have never had. And so I'm thinking that to the degree that I act on a platform of fear, which is based on, like you were saying, that I really connected when you said about like God's psychology versus my psychology.
Yeah.
And how often I'm in that mood of fearing for everything versus taking shelter in Prabhupada, taking shelter in Krishna.
Yeah.
And just trusting that from coronavirus to small, whatever, like as long as I'm endeavoring with sincerity that like I don't need to fear.
Yeah. Trusting the perfection and completion of everything in ways that we can't conceive. We can comprehend the principle. And so I'm really moved by your sharing on what's impacting you, these two sentences from the purport that you're seeing, whether it's the pandemic or just the way the wind's blowing or whatever, that it's deepen your appreciation that Krishna's caring for us, and in a very personal way. And you're seeing like in this catastrophe, let's say the pandemic, it's like that. There are so many like medical professionals, and even there, they can like in so many ways. What a blessing! Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'm not saving as much money this month as I was planning to. But what a blessing! I'm actually learning my children's names, things like that, and like that. So yeah.
It seems almost like deeply personal, like it seems like everything is happening just for me, and at the same time I could see it having just like I don't know, such a universal, like everyone's desire is being met universally, even though sometimes I'm thinking, in Italy so many people died and all these it's like it just feels so intimate and so like general and universal. Everyone's desire, like Krishna in the backyard with the pulling the pestle and the trees, and it just seems like everything is so perfect. Like I don't know.
Krishna's qualities. One of his qualities is clever. One of his qualities is expert, and that's defined as with one act accomplishing many things with one act. And whereas like maybe if I'm particularly on my game, with one act I can do 2 or 3 things. So he's like it's just like with one thing he's doing 2 or 3 quadrillion things. Thanks for sharing that. There's a well-known verse, Prabhupada quotes it a lot. I reference it a lot because it's so much, actually the entire Safato 3 seminar is based on this verse. Tate nukampam susamiksamano bunjana eva makritam vipakam vipag vapurvir vidadan namaste jivitur mukti pade sadayabak. If anyone's into learning Bhagavatam verses that Prabhupada quotes a lot, that's a good one. And that it essentially says, it's not encouraging spiritual bypass, it is encouraging to, like especially when things don't go according to script, according to my psychology and what's good, what's right, what's true, what's beautiful, and things aren't going according to that, to develop the consciousness that, okay, this is an opportunity for me to humbly deepen my surrender to Krishna. And then and enlightenment, pure devotional service, enlightenment, whatever term we want to use, means that we're applying that verse spontaneously at every moment. That's pure devotion. And whatever happens, whether it's materially good or bad, Badri, yes, that Lord Chaitanya says good or bad in the material sphere. This is all a mental concoction. That spontaneously we respond to it in a way that deepens our enthusiasm to serve Krishna. That's pure devotion. That's pure devotion, right? So it's one thing if like, oh, that terrible thing that happened to me 10 years ago, I can see there's some silver lining there. So that's nice. And then pure devotion is that spontaneously, like if good things are happening, I don't get carried away. Whoa, I'm great. This is gone. Life's great. But whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, by material calculation, we spontaneously respond with deeper enthusiasm to serve Krishna. That's what that verse is about. And hearing that those particular 2 verses from the purport moved you towards that realization. Thank you, Bhakta George.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu, for the class.
Hare Krishna.
I have a doubt that comes up when like Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is reinforced through his like fantastical acts, and it says like things like in this verse where it says like all these activities are not possible for anyone other than the Lord. And yet, like within the Vedas themselves, there's so many other entities and personalities that do fantastical things, even as like children, like Hanuman. There's many stories of Hanuman as a baby and child doing very impossible feats of strength. And another, this doubt came up again when within these series of verses we were reading about Lord Ramachandra, who angrily was looking at the ocean, and his anger caused it to like heat up, boil basically. And in the purport or within the verse, it was saying like, impersonalists may think they're God, but like who can think like their anger would make the ocean hot? Only God has that power. And a few pages before that, we were reading about Hiranyakashipu heating up the entire universe through his tapasya. So I'm getting to a point where like I see that there is no logic for like saying who God is, and it is just about like trusting the spiritual master, developing this mood of service, and then that being revealed. But I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about that. Yeah, just help me in that doubt.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we hear like successful mystic yogis, they can create a planet and they can do all sorts of things. That's where I hear you're going to. And so it's kind of like, well, it seems like something like this. We are hearing personalities like Hiranyakashipu or Hanuman, like that. So like they are doing things on this level. There's a letter where Prabhupada describes that like in other planetary systems, when Krishna appears, his activities are even more amazing according to the consciousness of the residents of other planetary systems. They're even more inconceivable like that. And so my understanding is that, like here, we have Brahma, who himself is creating universes, that he's speaking from a place of affection for Krishna, and he's speaking to Narada about this particular context. This is my understanding, because in other places, Brahma's describing what we might conceive as much more inconceivable activities of Krishna, even in creating the entire universe like that. And here he's speaking in the particular context of Krishna apparently appearing as an ordinary baby and child. And so within that context, then he's saying, like, yeah, look at these inconceivable activities. Look at these inconceivable activities. And I'm getting the Brahma's coming from his experience and realization. Having been so bewildered by Krishna. Brahma Vimohan Lila. Brahma, with his vision of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, and he's speaking with affection, and he's speaking with affection and realization about Krishna as the Supreme Lord, and in that bhava, in that context, he's describing, look at these activities and these activities like that how could an ordinary child do that unless he is the Supreme Lord? I don't get so much that he's saying like this logically shows that Krishna is God, but it supports that conclusion. And I think, like, if I read the entire context of Brahma's pastimes, Brahma's relationship with Krishna, then Brahma's he's established Krishna as the creator of all energies, and then in some sense, like Brahma seeing Krishna just as a cowherd boy holding a piece of sweet with fruit and rice, and then bewildering him, and just without even endeavor destroying the Putana demon, without even endeavoring destroying the Putana demon. Like, sometimes that's there, like Prabhupada addresses this, like, yeah, Hiranyakashipu he did all that. Dhruva Maharaj made, so we're talking about great demons, great devotees, Dhruva Maharaj, Hiranyakashipu, but they engage in great penance. Great austerity. So Krishna, an aspect of his special wonderfulness, is like he's not meditating to become God or to become powerful. So sometimes Prabhupada points out that aspect. He's not meditating to get some great strength or some great penance. Just without separate endeavor, he's just drinking the milk from the breast of Putana, and he's just being a child and with his cowherd boys, and completely bewilders Brahma. So yeah, so I certainly agree with you. It's obvious, like, these activities in itself, we can hear about mystic yogis, they do things that are apparently more powerful. But if we look at the whole context, that Krishna he's not even trying. He's not doing any meditation to become God, like that. So that these are, these are some things that come to me that in a sense, some sense of where Brahma's coming from here, where Brahma's coming. Like it's not necessarily our perception of the activities themselves, but if we look at Krishna, he's completely effortless, Didn't need to go through any systems or lifetimes of penances, just effortlessly doing these wonderful, inconceivable pastimes.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's really satisfying, and I appreciate you illuminating his effortlessness and Brahma's mood. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Narayan. Any other comments or questions?
I wanted to make a comment about something you said in the class, and then that was highlighted again with a comment from George. In the class, you said, like, you spoke about hell, and sometimes people have that idea, like how terrible it is to think of hell, and then you presented it in your class in a way that was so simple, is that when we separate ourselves from Krishna, then that's hell. That's just hell. And I was thinking, I'm part of a group of recovering COVID people who have ongoing symptoms. And yesterday I was thinking, I really don't want to be part of that group. And the reason why is that, like, the spirit of the group is that this is evil, this is bad, this is something to fight. And then reading whatever people post in that group feel like hell. It really does feel like hell. And I can see that the attitude of fighting reality, fighting God's plan, fighting reality is so much what is creating the hell. Because like someone was sharing yesterday, or someone was sharing, like, they asked question, like I asked question too, like, and so one person said, do you feel you feel that you have changed, that your character has changed? And a lot of people have character change. And I too experienced that, and I experienced very similar thing. And I was looking at it, and in my post I say, yeah, I feel really transformed inside. And I was just looking at how one perspective was really coming from like hell. This is hell, and creating hell really by the fight of the reality, not by the reality itself. Yeah, I just appreciated the way you presented it in your class, and also I appreciated the conversation with George in this regard. And it struck me like how we are creating hell. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Malini, thanks for sharing. Yeah, resisting reality is always a losing battle. And yeah, that whatever is happening with our body, whether we're relatively disease-free or immersion disease, if we absorb ourselves in these pastimes, in this transcendental vibration, then it's much sweeter than heaven. And we're in forgetfulness of we're in forgetfulness of who we are, spirit souls. Then we experience hellishness, right? But then, you know, the universe abhors a void. There's no void. And so if we're not serving Krishna with devotion, we're going to be filled with envy, fear. I have everything I want. Oh, but it's going to be taken away. But death is coming. But the government's going to attack that. Actually, oh, I have all the money I want, but it's getting. But because of inflation, this one, it's just we're going to experience hell if we're disconnected from ourself and the natural function of the self, service to God, and that's it. Again, it's the Sakya 2 of 3 course. Tate Nukampam. It's, most of you have heard me share the comedian saying that to to try to be satisfied with material acquisitions, like trying to satisfy hunger by taping sandwiches all over our body. It's quite an imagery there. But that's the thing. It's have, do, be, and it will never be. It'll always be hellish. The material happiness is, well, it's less hellish today than yesterday, or wow, she's experiencing more hell than me. Like that. Just it's relief of misery is not positive happiness of the soul. And so I hear that this COVID recovering conference, it's depressing. It's depressing. There's no transcendental life there.
Yeah, it's depressing, but it's just really the way people fight. Everything is a fight. Everything is wrong. Everything shouldn't exist. And there is no perspective, other possibility of other perspectives than that. Then it creates like so much anxiety and hell. It creates a hell. That group is in hell.
Yes. Thanks for sharing, Melanie. Yeah.
I'm thinking to stay in hell with them and then try to bring some transformative perspective, but it's not easy because people are really attached to their hellish perspective.
Yeah. Like
not Jews.
Yeah, like Prabhupada came to hell where there's no Krishna consciousness to give. And so you think, okay, maybe you have a service on behalf of Prabhupada in that group.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Thank you, Melanie.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Damayanti here. Thank you for the class. Yeah, I'm just thinking about keeping perspective, like keeping the devotional mood and attitude and perspective, like remembering that I'm a spirit soul, remembering I'm a servant of Krishna. Because what we're describing here is that if we keep the devotional perspective, then we're not in hell. And like, well, how do I keep the perspective? And it just seems like, in my experience, I need to be extremely rigorous with almost everything in my life, because everything I do or don't do could be a slippery slope out of perspective. And it feels quite intense, like how much, what my eating habits, my sleeping habits, my screen habits, my work habits, my parenting habits, my spiritual habits, like how I communicate, my association, everything I associate with, it's just like, it requires so much assertiveness, and I'm not there. Like I'm either passive or I'm aggressive, or I have habits and conditioning, and I'm like someone who's really like I'm really, just not that I'm great or anything, I'm just really tuned into that. Like I realize all the time that I'm like off and I'm sort of in hell with that, not totally accepting that I'm not in the assertiveness sattvic paradigm, but knowing I should be and I'm not, and so it's my own version of hell, not accepting my reality. But it's still true, like those habits and structures are going to help me keep perspective, and then I'm going to be peaceful anyway. So I just wanted to share my process.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, this isn't like I believe in this and I go to church on Sundays. 20 minutes a day I do my meditation. No, this is 24 hours a day. We can do, well, I do 10 minutes per week, 10 minutes per week of bhakti. That's fine, because there's no loss of diminution. Pravarta upto bhajatam sudharmata. At the same time, the recommendation, if we really want to come out of hell, is give ourselves, it's a whole way of being. And I completely relate to what you say. When I'm sleeping too much or sleeping too little, but sleeping too little doesn't happen too much. For me, it's more sleeping too much or eating too much. Yeah, then I'm disconnected. My bhakti's off, and I experience hellish conditions, and same with my screen time, and et cetera, et cetera. And so that's why it's a devotee is avyarta kalatvam, means the devotee is not interested to waste a moment, which means the devotee is conscious of all the Vegams, Vajravegam, Manasakota, my force of speech, my force of sleep, my force of mind, my force of eating, my force of sexual energy. The devotee is conscious of all the Vegams, and he's cultivating expertise to just regulate them expertly. So each day I'm coming towards that affectionate relationship with Krishna. You know, we don't want to imitate, but Prabhupada often gives the example of the 6 Goswamis. Yeah, they were just Sankya Purvaka Namagana Natibi Kalava Samikrital Nidrara Haravya Viharakadi Vijital Chajanta Dina Chaya Radha Krishna Gunasmiter Madhuriman Dana Samohital Bande Rupa Sanatanara Guyugal Sri Jiva Gopala Kal, that they were very rigorous in their chanting and in their sadhana. They were very rigorous, and by such dedicated, patient, quantitative commitment, they conquered over sleeping and eating and were enchanted with the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So so you know, it's described that the truly happy people are the fool and the Paramahamsa. Paramahamsa is the greatly realized soul, and the fool, because like if I'm just a fool or a pig wallowing in mud, pig looks pretty happy. The fool looks pretty happy. But if we have some awareness, but we're not realized to fully act on that awareness, then just like, oh, I realize I'm really suffering in hell here. Oh, but I'm too attached to give up the thing that's causing it. So it's, yeah, in that middle ground, that's, it's like we're aware enough to know, like, look how I'm suffering. Yeah. So Prabhupada, you know, it's very gentle and compassionate at the same time. Prabhupada's giving us a program where we can really become completely Krishna conscious in this lifetime. And that requires drita vrataha. It's a term used at least twice in Bhagavad Gita. Drita means determined, vrata, commitment. It's determined intention. And sometimes I can be like pretty highly intentional for a day or 2 days. And like, wow, yeah, I didn't waste any time on the computer, and I didn't sleep more than 6 hours, and my eating was regulated. But then but for 3 days in a row, like that. And then so this is our process. Thanks for sharing.
Exactly. What you just said was me. I had a really productive day, and then like the next 3 days this week, I was not as productive. Hare Krishna.
Join the club. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.